Hello queens, angels, and goddesses. Shout out to Mellow Mushroom and Okpa. Go subscribe to them. The links to their channels in the description. If you don't like my channel, then why are you on it? We don't have to do this if you don't want to, Azamain. Aon's deep voice reached him. The man always spoke quietly, when he even spoke at all, but his deep voice always carried. No, we'll do this. You really want to, I know. I just need a moment. Asahi mumbled, shutting his eyes and breathing deeply, trying to calm himself. This was fine. He'll be fine. He just needs to calm down and get in. This wouldn't be like the time they went to the zoo and were asked to leave with a refund because kids were crying. They specifically came in the middle of the weekend before noon, so there would definitely not be any kids around. It wasn't their fault they were both tall and had a big build. It wasn't their fault that they were both awkward, each in his own way, and that it made them look scary. They were both extremely gentle, and it stung a lot when people looked at them like they belonged to the Yakuza when in reality, they didn't even like watching violent films. They gave Asahi nightmares, and Aon thought they were boring. They spent their weekends cuddling most of the time, but people looked at them like they strangled puppies in their free time. It sucked, but it was just something they had to deal with. He opened his eyes and looked at the cute handmade and glitter-filled sign that read Cat Cafe Shelter. Kittens for adoption. Okay. He nodded. He could do this. No matter how the owner will look at them. Aon wanted to pet the kittens, and they haven't been on a decent date in a while. The more he lingers by the door, the more suspicious he'll look, and the harder it will be to eventually go in. He took another deep breath, fidgeting, and opened the door. They immediately greeted by a chorus of mewling cats. They were everywhere. On the sofas, on the tiny tables, playing with various toys. There were cats at all different colors and ages, from tiny black kittens to huge, fat ginger ones. His expression softened, and when he looked at his boyfriend he saw the same. Well, not exactly. Aon was the opposite of expressive, but after more than a year together he could read the slightest shifts in his permanent poker face, and knew that right now the man was awed. The cats didn't mind them at all, going about their business as usual. Yet another reason he loved animals, they were never more scared of them than they were of other humans. To a tiny kitten, a child or a 2 meters grown man were pretty much the same. He looked around for a barista, and when he couldn't find one he called out hesitantly, "Hello." Just a moment. A high-pitched, feminine voice called from a back room. "I'm sorry, it's just me handling things today and a shipment came in so I had to go to the back," and the woman the voice belonged to finally appeared in the doorway, and stopped in her tracks. She was small and petite, probably not a lot taller than 1.5 meters, with short blonde hair. And she looked terrified. And organize things. She finished awkwardly and swallowed visibly. She probably thinks we're here to rob her or something, Asahi thought. He tried not to let his face fall. Aon must have sensed this, because he reached out and squeezed his hand encouragingly. "Hey. We heard there were kittens up for adoption here, so we wanted to come by and see if we'll get attached to any of them." Aon, thankfully, took the reins and tried to make sure the small female understands that they are a completely normal, harmless couple. He squeezed his hand back appreciatively. The small woman seemed to slowly snap out of her shock. She schooled her expression into something more polite, but still careful. "Of course. I'm Yachi, I run this place. You can walk around and see if any of them likes you. It's not the human that picks the kitten, it's the kitten that picks the human most times. We have a few shy little fellows though, so you might have to sit for a while before they approach, but they are actually the sweetest kittens of the bunch and I'm rambling, sorry." She apologized, an embarrassed blush apparent on her cheeks when she bowed. "It's all right," Asahi assured her. In some weird way, her nervousness and awkwardness made him feel better. "Do you want anything to drink?" She did her best to smile, but it was still hesitant. "Latte with lots of cream and no sugar." Aon ordered his favorite. "Iced coffee please," Asahi said. "Thank you," he added politely. "Coming right up," Yachi chirped. "Sit wherever, we're not very busy today." Asahi nodded and turned to look at Aon in question. He was the one who really wanted to go and meet some kittens, so he should call the shots. Aon shrugged and led them to a couch close to one of the windows that had no cats on it. He probably chose it because he didn't want to disturb any of the sleeping cats, Asahi guessed. As soon as they sat down, a medium-sized grey cat came out of nowhere and started rubbing against their ankles. Asahi watched fondly as Aon's face lit up, eyes widening slightly in adoration. His boyfriend leaned down, carefully and incredibly gently petting the creature's head. The cat, much to their delight, meowed loudly and started purring like an engine. It wasn't long before he was settled in Aon's lap and getting the petting of a lifetime from the man's huge hands. His boyfriend turned to look at him at some point, saying just one word. Cute. Asahi thought it was very fitting. Aon really was cute. True. He said and kissed his cheek quickly before he loses his nerve. They both had a hard time with PDA, but they were trying. The cats came by, asking for a petting, leaving when they had enough just to be replaced by other cats. Asahi was petting a large white cat by his feet when Yachi finally approached them with a small tray that carried their drinks and placed it on the table. There you go. She smiled as she straightened up, and this time it looked much less forced. Maybe after watching them pet some cats she relaxed, seeing there was nothing to fear from them. Asahi thanked her again. She lingered, her hands held behind her back. Asahi knew that expression. She wanted to say something else but was embarrassed or nervous. He wore that expression many times himself. He didn't say anything and just waited patiently. He knew from experience that urging her to talk will only stress her out. And I'm sorry about before, she finally said. You two just startled me a little with your height. I'm not very used to people your size. This sounds all wrong. I just wanted to apologize for being rude earlier. You seemed a little offended and I'd hate to think someone was here and had a bad experience. She talked very quickly, looking so ashamed and regretful Asahi felt bad for her. It's okay. Really? He squeaked out. We get that a lot, it can't really be helped. He rubbed the back of his neck out of nervousness. And there is no way we'd have a bad time here. These little guys are very cute and friendly, and the drinks look really good too. The tiny woman nodded, seeming somewhat encouraged. Let me know if there's anything else you need, alright? Aon and Asahi nodded in unison and she returned to her business in the back room. She's nice. His big boyfriend commented, and he agreed. They sipped from their drinks, which really were very tasty, chatted quietly about their jobs and petted the cats who came to them begging for attention. It was a very nice, calming atmosphere to be in, and Asahi marked the place down mentally so they could come back. Unfortunately though, hardly any kittens approached them. Until Yachi brought one over, anyway. This little one keeps getting into the storage. Could you two do me a favor and keep him here? She asked. In her hands was a tiny kitten, couldn't be much more than a month old. Oh God. We would love to. Asahi put his hands forth and she spilled the little animal into them. He was impossibly soft. A little noise of awe escaped him, and both his big boyfriend and the small woman chuckled. His ears turned warm, but he knew they had zero bad intentions. Thank you. He mumbled, his thumb brushing the shiny fur. The kitten was an active one, mewling and struggling to get away. Asahi put him in his lap, and the creature immediately began exploring it thoroughly. Maybe his mewling was some sort of signal to a kitten gang or something, because more and more of them were showing up now, climbing on the couch and up their legs. Asahi almost felt overwhelmed with the new tide of kittens. Yachi introduced all the kittens, telling them about their character and likes. Oh, look. Here's Socks. She pointed to a mostly black kitten with white socks who bumped his head gently into Aon's ankle. His name isn't really Socks, I just call him that because. Well, that's pretty obvious. Anyway, he's usually scared of costumers. I'm a little worried he won't be adopted because he doesn't seem as lively as the others, but he's a really good kitten. Not that I'm, trying to convince you or anything. She waved her arms in front of her. Asahi chuckled. She really was awkward like them, but he understood what she was saying. While Yachi talked, Aon already picked up the small kitten who looked even smaller in his gigantic hands. The kitten could not be happier. He looked relaxed, purring and licking the man's palm. His deep voice suddenly declared, "We'll take him. If that's all right with you?" The question was meant for him, he knew, and he turned to look at the other. Of course. He blinked. It didn't really matter to him which kitten they were adopting, they were all equally cute. But if Aon liked that one specifically, that's the one they'll take. Is this the first kitten you'll be raising? Do you need any advice? Yachi asked. Asahi agreed, thankful, and they spent the next 15 minutes discussing the kitten's needs and another half an hour chatting about all sorts of things. Yachi was a very nice young woman, and he learned all the kittens here are abandoned ones that people find and bring over, and so they almost always have a few up for adoption. Then there are the store's cats, who are there at all times. He also learned that usually there would be another woman working, Kyoko, and he couldn't be sure, but from the tone of things he thought they might be dating. Yachi seemed to relax the more she was in their company, and Asahi was happy she was so friendly because it helped him be friendly as well. When they finally left, planning to go straight to an animal store for supplies, the little kitten secure in Aon's hands, they promised to come back. And they did. The place became one of their favorite coffee places to hang out in, and a friendship bloomed between them and the tiny blonde owner and her, as Asahi confirmed the next time they were there, girlfriend, Kyoko. They kept the name Socks, because it was cute and they were lazy, and one day, when they arrived and saw a new white kitten with black patches covering his feet, they knew Socks would have a new brother. Warning: this fanfiction does not belong to me, neither does the fan art. Credits to the original artist and author to the fan art and the fanfiction. Haikyuu does not belong to me either. Well, bye children, smiling face with hearts.